Hello everyone. I'm Anna from GreenGeeks, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, What's Working in SEO in 2025 with Lindsay Halsey, co-founder of Pathfinder SEO. Real quick, I want to say a couple of words about GreenGeeks. For those of you who are watching and may not be familiar with us, we're a 300% green energy web hosting provider, which essentially means we put back 3 times the power we consume into the green in the form of renewable energy. We have been recognized by the US EPA since 2009 as a Green Power Partner, and we offer share hosting, reseller hosting, VPS, and dedicated server. We also plant a tree for every hosting account we provision, and we just recently reached 50,000 trees planted through our partnership with a global reforestation nonprofit called One Tree Planted. So now moving on to a few housekeeping items for the webinar. If you have any question that you come up with during the presentation, you're welcome to put it in the Q&A, and Lindsay will be answering them at the end of her presentation. You can chat in the chat room, but remember to select everyone if you want everyone to see what you are discussing. And as always, we're recording this, so if you have to step away or you have to go to another meeting, don't worry, we'll send you the recording in a couple of days. And finally, we have enabled live transcription for those of you who need to read, and the ability to enable them during the webinar by clicking on the show captions icon. And so I'm going to introduce the GreenGeeks team who's here today, Erica, who will be assisting us with the chat and Q&A. Hey, welcome, Erica. Do you want to say hi? Introduce yourself.
Hi Anna, hello everyone. I am Erika Barbosa from Costa Rica. Today I'm going to be assisting the chat and hope enjoy today with Lindsay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce Lindsay. For over 15 years, Lindsay has been creating impactful, future-proof SEO campaigns for businesses of all sizes. She enjoys teaching SEO to site owners and web designers via courses and coaching. And outside of the office, Lindsay spends time with her family in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. She's also the founder of a nonprofit in Tanzania, To Return. Welcome, Lindsay. Would you like to say hi, introduce yourself, or start sharing your screen and dive in the presentation?
Thanks so much, Anna and Erica and everyone for being here today. Thank you for introducing me. That makes things very easy on my end. And I'm excited to be here to share what's working in SEO in 2025 and chat a little bit about what we're seeing at our agency, what we're seeing within our Pathfinder community, et cetera, in terms of results and how to really drive impactful, create impactful strategies. So I can dive in if you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Here we go. I've got the screen share going. And there's a phrase that I've been using consistently for the past 15 years because most SEOs talk a lot about Google always changing. But I've always kind of described it more as an evolution than a change. In my 15 years of working in SEO, following a holistic approach, I've never felt like the rug has been pulled out from under me, so to speak, in terms of SEO and strategy. But right now, I think it's fair to say that while things are evolving very rapidly and approaching the word change, and things are evolving so rapidly because SEO really just isn't SEO anymore. We have AI generated answers, we have changing search engine results pages, and then there are platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity that are really reshaping how people discover information and connect with businesses and brands. And so that's really what we're here to talk about today and talk about what we're seeing as things evolve and where you should invest your effort. And so when I think about what SEO used to be was relatively straightforward, which was we created campaigns that sometimes focused on improving rankings, right? So we want our website to be shown higher on the page on Google. And when we improve our rankings, we expect to see an increase in traffic or sessions, which is going to help our businesses generate more leads and increase sales. A relatively simple structure. More visibility leads to more traffic to our website, leads to more revenue. But when we think about SEO today, we're really starting to talk about visibility across platforms. And you're going to hear more acronyms. And in SEO, I really don't like acronyms. And I even try not to say SEO as many times as I already have on this call. And I really like to refer to it as just simply getting found on Google. And if we need to clarify it more, getting found on Google for free. So just for a couple of definitions, since these are things that you're all reading about and seeing, search engine optimization is sort of, in my mind, the art and science of getting found on Google for free in the organic search space. We then think about and hear the phrase answer engine optimization, or AEO. And this starts to talk about when people interact with Google, ChatGPT, or whatever the platform in a question-based format, which has really been on the rise. And answer engine optimization has actually been around for a long time, because we think about people turning to Google with searches or queries that are in a question format, and things like the people also ask box gets featured, and you don't always win the click, but you see a snippet or an answer. But this idea of meeting people in moments of questions is answer engine optimization. And then now you're hearing all about generative engine optimization, or GEO, and that's really building visibility on platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, etc. And if you're anything like me, sometimes all of this evolution can feel overwhelming. And a lot of people are overwhelmed by SEO alone, and then you add in all these more, new tactics, new strategies, more acronyms, and it becomes increasingly overwhelming. But when you walk away today, I hope you get a sense that you really don't have to feel overwhelmed here, because it's not comparing channels. It's not SEO versus AEO versus GEO. Really, the strategies are converging. So we really look at this more holistically to say that businesses just want to get found online and connect with their audiences. And we do so on Google, we do so on ChatGPT, on social media, we do so via email, etc. And the strategies that work for SEO, the foundation, is the same for AEO and GEO. So it's not, on the one hand, there's a lot of change, and on the other hand, it's business as usual. And so we're going to talk about, well, what are those strategies and tactics that are working today in this convergence of these three fields? And the other thing that I kind of want to reassure you is that your audience hasn't changed. It's all about connecting with your audience. And that also, maybe it evolves as your business evolves, but that hasn't changed as a result of what's happening in the world of search. So that's the good news. And I want to kind of walk you through what's happening here in 4 segments today. First, I want to talk about what AI means for SEO. We'll talk about how AI is just changing the search results and the landscape. Then we'll talk about things that still work, the things that we should continue to do. Then we'll talk about places that you want to shift your focus or maybe lean into a little bit more than you may have in the past. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about how to adapt your strategy, how to future-proof your investment. Along the way, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A. I'll be sure to save plenty of time at the end, and I'm happy to dive into any questions there. So let's start with, what does AI really mean for search and what's changing in the search results? You've probably already experienced a lot of it, but it helps to kind of look at it and put some labels and some language around it. And that is to say that Google has unveiled its own generative results, and they're in the form of AI overviews and AI mode. AI mode is not available worldwide, but probably will be. But right now, AI overviews are relatively extensive. And they're really already starting to impact businesses' traffic and click-through rates. And so basically, the AI overviews in AI mode answer questions directly on the results page. And the impact there is it reduces the need for clicks and website visits, right? So if I search for something like this example, when's the best time to visit Hawaii? Instead of going to a website, I see in the AI overview a very quick breakdown in a very structured and visually appealing way. And as a searcher, I'm likely to trust this and move on to my next search or engage with it a little bit more without potentially going to that #1 result below. So you can imagine that business, the HawaiiGuide.com, has probably seen a pretty significant reduction in click-through rates for this result, even though they're still in position #1. And so their session count has most likely gone down on their website. So businesses that get a lot of traffic for what I'll call the upper funnel of search, like informational queries, are often the most impacted by the AI overviews and AI mode, because a lot of that information exists now at our fingertips in a new format in the search engine results page. Oftentimes we see transactional queries. So like I'm shopping for a new pair of shoes, or I'm actually booking a vacation rental or something in Hawaii. Those queries still have relatively strong click-through rates because the activity still is occurring over on the website. But those informational query keywords, think blog oriented keywords, are often really heavily impacted. A lot of the data I've seen lately is kind of 30 to 40% reduction in click-through rates for that space. So what's shifting here is that in some ways the game is getting harder. If you describe the game as always winning the click, right? But really we're trying to connect with our audience, and there is an opportunity for brands to be featured in those AI overviews. So we sort of increase our importance on being part of the conversation in the AI generated results, the visibility, the impressions, and having a high kind of position or being cited often in those spaces. Whereas we may want to decrease a little bit of the importance of the actual win. Basically, winning the session is not the end all be all, because we know that in the user journey, if I am, for instance, the vacation rental company in this case, the user journey is first, like I have to decide I want to go on vacation in Hawaii and decide where I'm going to go. I'm still a few steps away from actually booking a rental. So if I engaged and saw your brand cited in the AI overviews, it's just one little tiny like brand nugget of visibility. I probably don't really need to visit your website in that moment. And then later downstream, if I find you again in a vacation rental query, there's a subtle little piece that's going to remember, I've heard of this brand, I've seen them, something subtle might help you win the click because you were part of the conversation. So that's kind of the optimistic view. But I do think when we think about how people make decisions to buy online, it takes a lot of touch points over a lot of different platforms or kind of channels to actually win a conversion. And so we have to look at this as sort of, it's like a billboard. It's one more channel, one more touch point that you get to put behind your brand. Along the way, search is becoming more conversational. And this is something we've already seen happen before when we think about like the rise of voice search, right? So in the early days of SEO, people put in 1, 2, 3 word phrases. You always had to type it in. Our keywords were relatively short. And then we started to see sort of an explosion of what SEOs called the long tail, when you put in more keywords, like 4, 5, 6 word phrases. And that was sort of like this sneaky corner of SEO where when people realized not always chasing the highest volume keyword was actually really valuable, there was an emergence there, and then that became pretty competitive too. But now search is more conversational than ever. It became also more long tail or question oriented with voice search. You hear like I hear my 11-year-old search for something, it's always voice search over a phone, and the phrases are really long and they're very descriptive as to like what his use case is, how, you know, who he is or whatever. There's a little bit about audience in a lot of those queries. So people now are interacting with search engines even more conversationally, right? You can use natural language questions. You can expect quick and synthesized answers. So if I want to come in and staying in the travel space and I want to create an itinerary for a trip, these are things that would take a lot of time. My parents asked for a little bit of help planning a trip for them in October, and being on a time crunch, I turned to the AI mode in Google, and they said, can you create a 7-day itinerary for my parents? And then I kind of continued on. I said, they're going to Paris in October, and here's like their age range. And it's going to give me something customized to all of these different parameters, and I can continue the conversation and assume that Google remembers where we started. And so this is sort of like the impact of searches. The long tail is back and it never really went away, but like anytime you create content that is really hyper specific to the audience, it's more likely to win. And so instead of creating a piece of content, the definitive guide to SEO and AI, or AI's impact on SEO, for example, I would want to create something more audience specific for local businesses, for e-commerce, for web designers. And that would be better than this definitive massive guide that targets everyone and sort of reaches no one, but rather getting really specific goes far. Then next, AI is really powering a new wave of answer engines. So these are also kind of non-surprising, elements for you all at this point, which is that people are turning to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, et cetera, and they're gaining traction and pulling it a little bit away from Google, Yahoo, Bing, because we can turn to the learning language models and ask questions, and basically we have this kind of new wave of generative engine optimization. And so now you kind of have to decide as a business or a brand, do you treat these as siloed, like here's my SEO team, here is my GEO team, etc., or do you actually treat it as one holistic campaign? And my argument is sort of that SEO hasn't been done in a back office as like a singular channel for a long time, right? It's always, and it's emerged from that back office mentality to being kind of one of the hubs of marketing teams' initiatives. And there's overlap with Google Ads, there's overlap with social, paid social, email marketing. All of the things a business does within marketing is impacting their organic search traffic. And the same is true right now with getting found and being included in ChatGPT and building visibility there. So the way we're treating it at our agency is like we just now have this like bigger opportunity space, and we care about more than just Google, Yahoo, and Bing, because we know the things that we're doing for SEO sort of pay double dividends, right? They're going to help you get found in other places and build that visibility as well. So now let's get a little bit more kind of strategic and tactical with the big frame of all that's happening and talk about what still works. Why are we saying the rug hasn't been pulled out from under us? Why are we still blogging? All of those things. And the first thing that helps is what's always worked in SEO, which is creating helpful audience-first content. So content marketing is still super important. And what's most important about it is that you think about the position your audience is and create content that is going to match their search intent, that uses clear structure, so it's like easy to scan. And it shows and reveals your expertise, experience, authority, and engenders trust. That's a lot, right? And that's not to say we can't lean on AI to help us generate content. There's nothing within Google's algorithm that actually penalizes you for using AI generated content. But what it means is that you really need to be playing a game of not, hey, I want to get found on Google, or hey, I want to get found on ChatGPT, but hey, I want to serve my audience, right? I want to help my audience in this moment with this piece of content, whether that piece of content is a blog post, a landing page, a product description, etc. You really want to put yourself in their shoes. So still investing heavily in the content game. The next piece of sort of what we see is just strong site foundations. So this across the board helps, which is page speed, mobile friendly, secure, great hosting with GreenGeeks, for example. These are really important elements, right? This is the foundation of your website. And if you don't have a secure website that's up to date, with a reliable host that's mobile friendly and paid, has good speed scores across different devices, you're missing out on a core fundamental. So that still goes a long way. But then great design and usability goes further than ever. And part of that is because the search engines learn from that engagement, right? So if you win the click and they come to your website and a visitor stays on site, they engage with the content, visit multiple pages, scroll around, etc., that positively reflects back into the machine learning, and Google can learn from that user experience. On the other hand, if I land on your website, it loads slowly or it looks funny on a mobile device, and then I bounce back to Google and go to the next result, that reflects poorly on your, on that machine learning. And so it's not like a singular individual visit is going to make or break things, but collectively we know that the search engines are looking at that user experience. So it impacts your search results, but then of course, great design and usability also impacts your conversion rates and engagement and well beyond just how Google sees your site. So we really think here that you're just kind of this foundation is technical SEO. It doesn't mean you don't have a single broken link or some page not found errors. A little bit of technical debt is okay, but we want the foundation to be overall strong and secure. And then we want to have a really good user experience. And when you combine those two things, you engender trust, which we know the search engines and the learning language models all appreciate. Then we get into on-page optimization, and this structure and on-page optimization matters more than ever. I've always been a big fan of on-page optimization because it actually does have a forward-facing user impact, right? So when we do things like add good headers, H1s and H2s, when we have good internal links, when we use alt text and think about accessibility, we are doing things that impact the user experience, impact how long someone stays on the site, etc. And I like that organizational component of on-page optimization. So those things still matter. And you may hear people debate, do page titles and meta descriptions still matter? Because Google is often rewriting them in the search results. Call me old school, but I still want to put my best foot forward and give Google what I'd like them to use and consider it ad text. And I also know that those page titles and meta descriptions live in the top header HTML of a page. So anything that is crawling my website, whether it's the learning language models or the search engine robots and spiders, they're encountering that very high on a page. So I still put emphasis on title tags and all of these SEO basics, and really look at on-page optimization as how we add context to our content. So we're basically taking something that could be like a college essay and turning it into something that has more contextual clues that make it easier for the search engines, make it easier for the learning language models, but more importantly for your user to experience and digest your website content. Along the way, we're seeing a little added value from schema markup. So this is when you add structured data that labels things on your website behind the scenes. So the labeling is things like, this is a blog post, and this is the blog post title and the blog post author, or this is a product page, and this is the price and the availability, and here's the description. Or this is a recipe page, and here's how long it's going to take you to make it, and here's what ingredients you need, and here's what the reviewers say, how many stars, things like that. So that structured markup behind the scenes is also really valuable in today's world of SEO. And then we often think about also, when we're thinking about on-page optimization, kind of having clear summaries and answer first formatting. So when like people also ask came out, many years ago, a lot of people went back into blog posts and they basically turned things into have like a header and then the succinct answer right below it, and then kind of the long form answer. And then they did a header, succinct answer, and then another like long form response, right? Because Google was looking at the header, seeing the question or the topic, then snippeting out the content right below it and pulling it into the search results. Well, it's not happening like that anymore. Oftentimes now Google is actually using its AI, the AI overviews, in those people also ask. But the structure is still really important because you're training up everything and becoming part of those conversations by using sort of an answer first format when applicable. It doesn't need to be overdone. You'll also see more people doing clear summaries, like the quick bullet point, and saying, hey, here's the long form blog post, but at the top it's like, here are the 5 takeaways, or here are the 3 sections, or if you learn anything from this, this is it. Those types of clear sections also go a really long way. So let's see. And then we can still talk about content. And we started there on like what's still working. But I want to hit back on it because content is still sort of the name of the game when it comes to SEO. And there's a couple of things that we've been focusing on. And that is to say, we want to think about kind of a cluster strategy and topical depth. So on our website's blog at Pathfinder SEO, we added a new section of AI or SEO in the age of AI. So it's a new category. And I think we've added about 4 posts to it. And each post is collectively coming together to give us some topical depth, right? To show that we have a depth of expertise in an area and we're willing to share it. And they're kind of clustered together so that Google understands the structure and how they relate. Part of how Google understands that relationship, and readers do too, is internal linking. So those blog posts link to each other. We also link off our website to other websites that have more expertise on the topic or are sharing more on something. So those blog posts aren't just like isolationists and reflecting back on themselves, but we link out to other trusted partners. So this idea of this cluster strategy still really applies. And it's not to say that every time we tackle a topic on our blog, we're going to like buff things out and do 4, 5, 6, 7 different blog posts in one topic. But when something is really important right now, like AI and SEO, we're going to give it more real estate and give that topical depth. Years ago, we did the same thing with Google Analytics 4 when it came out. We started talking about what is it? How do you transition? When should you? All of those things. Then other little things will come up and I'll just want to write like, hey, here's a simple topic. Maybe I only have one post on that. But this content builds your website and positions you as a business owner as an authority in a space, right? And that's kind of what it shows. So when I think about if I was, say, an interior designer and I had a blog on my website, I would want my blog to do 3 things for me. The first thing I would want to do is I'd want to showcase some of my authority and experience. So I would create some relatively generic copy that's like, what are the most popular paint colors in 2025, right? Or how to figure out, should I wallpaper my bathroom or something like that. Anything that basically showcases the kind of things you would answer a client. So if you're a web designer in this showing authority, if somebody asks you, should I build on WordPress or Squarespace, that would show you as an authority in what you do. Or should I think about SEO while I'm redesigning my website? Again, that's like going to help position you as an authority in the field that your service exists in or your product. So that's one tier that's really important. Then the next tier that's really important is content that positions you in front of your audience one step before they're ready for your product or services. So one step before product and services for that interior designer might be somebody searching for an architect in the area, right? You get an architect, then you build something, and then you need to like figure out the interior design. So you might go back a step. And say, okay, I'm going to create a blog post about best interior designers in my area. Another thing for a web designer might be somebody is going to try a DIY approach, right? So best websites for the industry that you serve. Website examples in and then whatever the industry is that you might serve, because people might try to go and like get inspired and do it themselves, find they have not enough time, and then hire a web designer. So you're thinking about creating content that builds authority in your space by sharing your expertise, that helps you connect with people a step or two before they're ready for your product or services. And then my other area that I sometimes do is what I'll call sales enablement. The things people are asking you on sales calls, et cetera. The things that kind of help push people towards conversion. So it could be a case study or something like that would be the type of thing that helps push somebody towards a conversion. So we're still investing in all of these things. And with all of the evolution in search, this has not changed. We're still keeping our blog posts regularly updated. We're still linking internally and externally, etc. But everything we've talked about so far of like, hey, what still works, fits into the category of stuff that we all like to work on because we have total control over it, right? It's within our website. It's all of the things that happen within technical SEO, content, and on-page optimization. And I can actually just sit down and do those things. The harder piece for most businesses is all the things that happen off-site. And that off-site SEO still really matters and influences everything. And that is to say that like 60% of the game is kind of your website, and about 40% of your game in the world of SEO is all of the conversation being had about your business or brand that is off your website. And the thing that as SEOs we want are high quality backlinks and mentions. So we need to get out there as business owners, as web designers, etc., and get other people to mention and link to our websites. But we want to do so authentically. We don't want to buy backlinks, etc. Instead, we want to look at our real world kind of professional network, how we do business, and think about how we can get backlinks to each other. So for example, you're at a GreenGeeks webinar and there'll be a replay and there's going to be probably a link over to Pathfinder. And then I should go out and share it on social media and maybe add it into my speaker's bio page of like all the places that I've spoken and link back to GreenGeeks, or from a partner page on our website, mention GreenGeeks. So all the ways that you sort of do everyday business can oftentimes turn into what builds your offsite SEO, what builds some of this external credibility. For smaller businesses in the local space, managing your Google Maps listing is super important and is one of those offsite signals. And this can actually scale up to larger businesses with national audiences. But that kind of puts a pin dropper on the map, right? That builds some trust and authority. You have to go business owner verified, etc. And then getting more reviews are other ways that you can really build that offsite SEO. So this stuff all still matters. It's all the frame for which our SEO strategies are built around. And I would argue that none of it's really changed in the last couple of years or really over time. Instead, it's just evolved on kind of where we put our foot on the gas. So let's talk a little bit about like where should we shift our focus, or what should we lean into a little bit more? So what's kind of working a little bit more than some of these other tactics? The first thing that we're finding works more is leveraging the concept of firsthand experience and really just trying to let the humans shine through in your website, no matter how big or small your brand is. And what I mean by that is, we know with AI, the internet is flooded with average content, right? So people can just very quickly create a blog post now, and you don't really know who to trust, who's behind the post, etc. And Google and the learning language models, everybody wants to showcase genuine expertise. Like if I search for a medical query, I kind of want to read the answer from a doctor, right? Not from a fellow patient that came up with their own solution and is sharing their experience. I want to hear from the expert in the area. So too often our websites sort of remove that. We try to make our business or our brands look really big when really there are real humans behind the brand, right? And so we can let humans shine through in so many places. We found a lot of our blog posts, even before the AI overviews, were starting to kind of drop in the rankings and lose visibility on our website. And we went back, they were all human written. It was like pre-AI being kind of mainstream way of creating content. And we reevaluated it and decided that our introductions and our content was really structured and like really clear, but really not very personalized. There were like no anecdotal stories, nothing that really made you realize we have skin in the game, we're fellow agency owners, etc. So we just went back and rewrote all of our introductory paragraphs to really let the human shine through and to oftentimes be in the first person, right? Here's my personal experience on this topic, and then here's the structured version, the how, or whatever kind of meaty content I want to share. We can add testimonials with images of real people. That's going to let firsthand experience shine through. We can buff out our about pages, put more content about our brand, about ourselves as individuals, make it easier for people and the search engines to connect with us as humans. And we can add more imagery that's less stock photography or AI generated images and really more personalized. These are just a few ways to let you as a human shine through in your website. But that's going really far these days. Along those lines, you are going to see like an evolution of wanting to build some authorship entity. So if we want to know who is behind a piece of content, we want to have pages dedicated to the who behind our business. And so here's NerdWallet, and if you look at their website and look at their content, you're going to find all sorts of links that tell you who wrote the article, who edited it, and then when you go into it, it tells you their credentials. What's their education? What's their bio? What other things do they think is interesting out on the internet? Like what other recommendations do they have? What articles have they written? Are they public speakers somewhere, etc.? So you see this like rise of custom authorship pages because these signals are shining through, and you can establish your expertise by sharing any kind of thought leadership on your authorship page. So podcasts, webinars, YouTube, you don't have to be out there in the external world. It could be something you put on YouTube, social media, your blog posts, just building a little bit of a who the person is and making it really easy for people to connect with you. The other thing that we've been really seeing a lot of value or leaning into is just this focus on engagement and conversion. And we touched on it earlier. We talked about that concept of dwell time. You come to a blog post and you spend a lot of time. That is good. But we do want to go back into our content and really go with that audience first user intent and think about, does the user intent match the content? So the keywords they search for, are they finding the content? Then can we enhance that content with more images, video? Can we enhance it with better structure like headers? And then even more so, could we add a call to action that's really tied to the user intent? So one of the things that we've leaned into on our website that we've seen a lot of result and been able to help clients do is basically say, okay, most people kind of have a relatively simple lead acquisition funnel, right? You have a blog and then you're on the blog and like a pop-up says, sign up for our newsletter, or at the bottom of it, it says, you like this content, get more right to your inbox, right? And there's a little like sign up for an email newsletter at the bottom of the blog post. And that's great. That is a call to action. There's no question. But it doesn't necessarily meet me in the moment of what I was looking for, right? I have to really like a brand to be like, oh yeah, I'll just get your generic content and anything you send to me and give you my email. So on our website, those newsletter conversion kind of pop-ups and things, they had like lower than a 1% conversion rate. So not nothing, but not great. Then we went back in and said, let's take our 10 most popular blog posts with the highest readership and let's create calls to action that actually meet the person in the moment they are. Say, hey, we'll give you this if you give us your email. So here, the Google Ads Planning template blog post had a Google Ads Planning template you could actually download, right? Relatively simple. And we exchanged giving it away for getting an email address. We have an SEO proposal template, blog post, same concept. We have an AI ready checklist, same concept. There's something AI oriented on the AI themed blog posts, or something e-commerce oriented on blog posts about e-com shops. And so the giveaway or the call to action is the next thing that you need. And so why are we doing this? Well, one, it increases our dwell time and we get leads, etc. But we know we're playing in a game where we have to be like really, really focused and targeted right now, because it's harder to win the click. So when we do win the click, we need to get more conversion out of every visitor if we're going to get as much value out of our content marketing today as we did in years past. So these are things that we're sort of leaning into or just evolving on our website. And they don't have to be massive. You don't have to go do this for 100 blog posts. You could go into your 5 most important blog posts, like the ones that get you in front of your target audience the most. Go into those 5 blog posts. Make sure the human shines through, tidy up, expand the content a little, add a great call to action and a custom CTA, and then republish with today's date. Something like that is the kind of thing we're seeing a ton of value from. And then finally, we're leaning into Google reviews more than ever, and really reviews on any platform, because one of the things that we found is that the AI is especially good at summarizing reviews and understanding sentiments about a business or a brand, small to large. So if you turn to AI mode and say, where's the best pizza in Denver? You can see it doesn't look like the local search results, right? Like it's not the map pack, but it is pulling in Denver restaurants. But when you read the little bits of text, it says things like it was named Colorado's best pizza by Reader's Digest. Then you can see things like they are praised for, or many reviewers have declared it the best pizza, etc. So how is the AI figuring this out? They're looking at a business's reviews and also your response to those reviews on Google Maps, on Facebook, anywhere that you can get reviews that are relevant to your industry, and then synthesizing it down into these like 1 and 2 sentence phrases that are going to influence getting in these lists to begin with, right? Being even included, but then also winning the click and getting that over there. So let's dive into how you might adapt your strategy, and then I'll leave plenty of time for questions. I know I talk really quickly, and so I can also go back in any slides if you need clarification on something, and happy to share the slide deck as well. But let's talk about adapting your strategy. We've sort of said, here's what continues to work. Here's some places you might like not have thought about that you can lean into a little bit more aggressively and get more value. But how do we really future-proof our investment, which in this case is a lot of investment in time? And when I think about future-proof SEO, right now at our agency and our business, we're continuing to follow this holistic approach. And what I mean by that is everything we do has to make like real world sense. And I have to be able to explain it to somebody in common language. So if I have a client, I'm not going to have to explain, oh, I went and got you this spammy backlink because I bought it from a third-party network. No, that's not holistic SEO. Instead, I'm going to talk about how we helped you claim your Google Maps listing. We gave you this link where you can go and try to get some of your customers to leave reviews. We helped you develop a system to positively respond to reviews consistently, etc. That's more holistic SEO. And that's the approach we want to take. Stuff that just makes logical sense. You're out there being helpful. You're out there sharing, and everything you do in terms of SEO, it makes logical sense as to why it would fit into your strategy. And then we want to layer in some of what's new. And we talked about some things that you might lean into in terms of like we're seeing more value when you go back into blog posts and revise them this way, etc. But there are new and emerging technologies and tactics coming out. So recently, a file or a protocol called LLMS-TXT came out, and a lot of WordPress sites are already engaging in creating an LLMS-TXT using plugins like Yoast. And what an LLMS-TXT file does is it helps the learning language models digest your content quickly. It's sort of like that quick resume for them to look at and understand your website. And it's going to help build visibility and is emerging as a tool in getting found on ChatGPT and beyond. And so that's the kind of thing that there are some little, like, I want to call them like more like icing on the cake type tactics that play specifically into ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity, etc. And there are those new things that you can stay up to date with and start to stay kind of ahead of the curve there. But again, everything should make logical sense and not necessarily be a shortcut. You're not really looking for shortcuts in terms of getting found. Instead of everything is sort of, this is the snowball effect. Like it's just little by little, activity by activity, and all of a sudden you're building a lot of visibility. Within future-proof SEO, I also think the most important thing you do is measure and communicate, right? So we still need to measure our success and our growth and look at return on investment. And we really need to communicate, whether that communication is with our teams in an organization or communicate with, if we're a site owner and we're working with a web designer or developer, we need to communicate with them about, hey, this is stuff we need help with on our website. We want to add this or change that. Or if we're a web designer, we need to communicate all of this with clients. They need to understand how things are evolving so they don't get a monthly SEO report and see, oh, our traffic is down, our sessions are down. We're gonna end our service. There's no value here. You can keep and retain your clients today more than ever because this is evolving and there is a lot to do and there's a lot of opportunity here, and there is the risk of sort of getting left behind in all of this evolution. And so it's all about how we are able to communicate what the risks are, what the opportunity space looks like, how we are evolving, and make this approachable and something that we're applying. So hopefully you've come up with some new phrases and different ways to communicate with people. My favorite way for clients is basically anytime we're always on Zoom, and I'm always like, I have screen share and I'm showing them the thing. I'm searching for their keyword and showing them the logic of why would your click-through rate go down? Oh, it's really frustrating, right? To still be number one in this space and to see this drop. And then I can look and show them data in Search Console. But then I can show them the upside. Look, you're featured in the AI overview. Look at you over here in AI mode. Oh, and did you know you're getting some traffic already from AI? Let's look in analytics and look at how much traffic you've gotten and see this emerging trend. So all of the communication, all of that measurement is really helpful. And it's, of course, evolving a little bit too. And still sort of the backbone of measurement is oftentimes Google Analytics, right? Or Fathom or whatever you use to track your website and understand sessions, where are they coming from, how long are they staying, etc. In the world of privacy, cookie policies and cookie consent, we don't always get a full picture of what's happening with our website traffic in Google Analytics, but it's still, I would define as sort of a backbone or key component there. And so this is where you're going to see a lot of session data and engagement data. And those sessions may be going down in an era where it's harder to win the click, but you may also be seeing a little emergence of AI as a channel in analytics, and you can start to kind of point towards that rising tide. I also turn to the Google Search Console a lot. The Search Console is not so heavily impacted by things like cookie consent because it's everything that leads up to the website visitor. It's like your visibility. It tells you basically how many impressions you're getting, like what kind of a view you're getting, how many clicks, which lead to sessions, what your click-through rate looks like, and what your average position is. And so as SEOs, we've always been so focused on sessions, but if you talk to people in PR, in paid social, in programmatic, and lots of other fields, they put a lot of weight on impressions, views, brand visibility, how often you're part of the conversation. And I think as SEOs, we have to move a little bit in that direction and say sessions still matter to us, but we want to be in the conversation. We want to see how many people are seeing us. And an imperfect but helpful statistic can be impressions along those lines. Then you're starting to see kind of more talk in different SEO software, in different overall marketing tools about visibility. So you'll see things like visibility scores emerging, a Google visibility score or an AI visibility score. I know I got an email from Yoast recently talking about their AI visibility and brand monitoring. That is emerging. People want to know how often they're being part of those conversations on those tools and those platforms. And so our rank tracking as SEOs is going to expand to include not just, hey, you're number 2 on average or you're number 5, but more like how often are you in the conversation? How is your brand positioned? And we want to put a little weight into that space. So key takeaways from the last 45 minutes is, yes, AI is reshaping search. And in a lot of ways, investing in SEO right now pays double dividends because it also helps you in the world of AEO and GEO. That foundation is the same, and those fundamentals are the same. And that at the end of the day, if you do one thing, and that is to just continue to put your audience first, to think about how can I be helpful? How can I improve the design on this? How can I share more of my expertise, etc. If you put your audience first, you are going to continue to win as search evolves. So that's kind of the big picture. And at Pathfinder, this is exactly what we help businesses engage with. We help site owners, local businesses, e-commerce stores, etc., web designers and agencies evolve as SEO evolves. And we do so with courses and checklists. We have group coaching and office hours where you can come in and ask questions and get feedback and hear what others are saying. And then a community thread. And so there's a free trial, no coupon code needed, but you can check it out at Pathfinder and SEO.com. And if that would be helpful to you. All right, I went really fast at the end to try to make sure we have time because I was also seeing the questions pour in.
Yes, we have quite a few questions. I'm going to read them to you if it's okay.
That's perfect.
Okay, so Marlene is saying Cloudflare new setting block AI training bots. How does it impact on visibility in AI tools? Are there best practices around this yet?
So some businesses don't want the AI to crawl and understand their website. Think of like the New York Times, right? They invest a ton in their journalism and then they feel like AI is just like copying it and then regurgitating it and they're losing their readership, which is how they make money. So that's why you can see that there is the opportunity to block AI training bots out of a website. For most websites, I would recommend against that. You want the AI to train up on your content because you want to be part of the conversation and you get cited and you get brand mentions and you want people getting accurate information. So for the most part, I'd say, 9 times out of 10, you want to let all the crawlers in and explore a website and because you want visibility across the board.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's see. James, is it worthwhile to start creating content, posts, blogs, etc. that are more geared for questions prompted in AI prompts rather than keywords or subjects alone to win that search results?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're creating content and picking topics, you're thinking about like keyword research. What are people searching for on Google, or like tackling a whole subject? But you can also frame those posts in the way that somebody might interact with an AI prompt. I remember I was on a website recently and I found it via AI. My computer was slowing down, and I'm not great with computers and technology in that sense. And so I had ChatGPT trying to help me identify what the problem was. And then it recommended I buy more memory, and then it told me where to go buy it, etc. And I landed on that e-com site, and there was a little chat bot that says, I saw you just came from ChatGPT. What search did you just make? I'm like, what search? I've been in this like conversation for 5 minutes. I don't have a word or a series of words to let you know, but I was diagnosing a problem on my computer, and ultimately it allowed me to get to this place. So what could that business like take away from that? Maybe they should be creating, a blog post of, if your Mac is slow, could memory be the issue? 5 ways to, diagnose these issues, or something like that. And maybe that would be something that would be in line with what they could take away. But man, did I struggle to summarize like a 3 to 10 word phrase that I put in there, because I had a conversation with the AI. I didn't have a singular keyword. So I'd say yes and no, just because there are some challenges there, but it's kind of a hat you can put on when you're thinking about blog post topics.
Thank you. Caesar is asking, the alt text for my images should be oriented to the keywords, like force the alt texts, even if the image is not fully related to the keywords?
No, you want to put the genuine alt text in behind your images as much as possible. So you don't need to shove keywords in. You really want to describe the image. In this image here, you see a happy person working on a Zoom call, right? So I could just say like person smiling while on a Zoom call. That would describe this image. I would consider it over optimized if I said, happy Pathfinder customer that gives us 5 stars in guided SEO, right? Like that's not what this image is of. So yes, don't shove keywords in, but be descriptive and just describe the image as you would to me if you were trying to tell me which one image to pick up out of a pile of images. Don't stuff keywords in.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, data. So it seems like storytelling and more human forms of communication, visual stories, is not valued at all by the AI engines, as they're looking purely for data that answers simple questions. I'm an artist. My why is as much of part of my authority and work as my skills client base.
Yeah, so in the
Does-
creative spaces, it can feel like this is, the AI engines are really like kind of into more of a rote style, etc. But I still think there's an opportunity there. And so as an artist, just keeping the hub of and telling your why and telling it on your website, telling it on social media, etc. Is going to really help, so that it is less generic. If somebody puts a prompt into AI that pulls up your website or asks about you in AI or something like that, there's an opportunity there. So yeah, stay creative. Don't give away that just to play into the AI.
Yes, thank you. Clark is asking, if I serve multiple industries, should I create multiple variation of content on unique pages for each one?
Yeah, good question. This happens like, let's say you're a web designer and you serve 3 different industry spaces and you have 3 different services. You do web design, development, and SEO. And then you have 3 industries. You multiply it, all of a sudden you have like 9 permutations, and they're all like kind of generic. Like it's hard to differentiate things. So in general, I would say that you usually want to have an industry specific landing page, because people want to be able to go in and see their experience on that industry page, right? So they want to feel like you're meeting them there. And as a web designer, you would have like portfolio items, testimonials, things that are really unique to that industry. But then I would probably keep your services. For interior designers, we do web design, web development, and SEO. I probably wouldn't create individual pages for each of those permutations. So this concept of like industries, or how many location pages should I create, etc. This is the kind of stuff we get into a lot in our office hours, because there's not like a singular answer that works all the time. But at the end of the day, you kind of think about your audience and think about, well, would they be served with an industry page? Yes. Would they be served with one industry page on web design, one on development, and one on SEO? Might be a little bit of a stretch. So my gut on something like that would be to pull back and just have one page per industry.
Thank you. Oscar is asking, what is the minimum amount of words in a page or blog for Google to index content?
There's no minimum, and you want to think about user intent. So if it's a blog post, you need some words, right? And usually I think around like 800 to 1200 words is a nice like length of post. If I have to write a lot longer than that, I probably tackled too big of a topic. And if I write a lot shorter, I probably went too narrow on my topic. But we also see examples of Google showcasing pages with like almost no words. If you do a search for QR code scanner, like the third result on Google is a page that literally does nothing but scan the QR code, and it says QR code scanner. There's no fluff. There's nothing else. Because the user intent is spot on. So user intent matters more than word count, but if it's a blog post, it needs words.
Yeah, that makes sense, user intent. William is saying, the most recent figures I've seen are that Google still has 90% search in the US, and about 30% of those searches have SERPs that includes an AI mode summary. Please correct me if you have different data. While AI searching is clearly becoming more used, at what point do you think that AI will become the norm?
So I see similar statistics. I think those are good overall figures. And this is playing out like right before our eyes. So I was reading in the New York Times last night that Perplexity once made an offer to buy Google's Chrome browser because Google's in an antitrust lawsuit. And Perplexity is a major up and coming AI startup. And they're like, hey, get out of your lawsuit, sell us Chrome, right? This is like being battled out literally day by day right now. And I think it all still remains to be seen. I've also read a lot that Google is, while some people think like, oh, they're big, they're a dinosaur, they're not going to be able to move fast enough in all of this, that they're actually evolving and still outpacing the competition and not losing market share. I think another interesting thing to be following along here is where do ads fit in? Because monetizing all of this is still really important, and Google's not going to be willing to give up too much of its ad revenue just to battle it out and keep that AI rolling. So where ads starts to fit into this is probably a conversation we'll be having in an upcoming session because that's evolving too.
Yeah. Okay, Ria is saying, are there any rules about updating blog content? For example, I wrote something 3 years ago and I'm updating it today.
Updating your content is a great practice, and I change the date stamp and say, yep, this is now published today, as long as I add new value, right? So new value could be new imagery, new value could be a new section, new value could be an updated intro. If all I do is fix like a typo and like little stuff, some grammar, then I don't update the date because it's not really genuine.
Ah, that makes sense. Jerome is saying, do you have any tools you would recommend to help find low-hanging fruits keywords in a niche with low competition, but a decent amount of monthly searches? Thank you.
Yeah, this has always been like hey, how do I find the needle in the haystack, or like, what's the little secret? I don't have a like singular tool that I would recommend here. Again, I would not necessarily go in with the low-hanging fruit mindset, but more the how do I connect with my audience mindset. So the tools I use when I'm doing keyword research, I still use Google, like Google Search Suggest. I start typing in a phrase and I see like what's out there. I use keywords everywhere quite a bit. And then I always just put that audience lens. If I know people are searching for things to do in Baltimore this weekend, and I see that as like a good keyword, then I add a lens, like maybe with kids or, whatever the interest or something might be, for groups or something like that. And I just am kind of right now constantly pushing things to get more specific to audience. Here's the topic and here's the audience, and making those two things really clear in my content.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, Clark, with addition of LLM.txt, are submitting and registering sitemap.xml and Google Search Console and Google Business Listing still as relevant?
Absolutely. So the LLMS TXT file doesn't replace any of those, and it's all of those other activities are even more relevant and even more important. The LLMS TXT is an example of like emerging technology. We still don't even really know how much it's going to help, but yes, in short, do all of those things still.
Yes. Garrett is saying, you mentioned avoiding shortcuts. What do you think of tools like QPromote, which generate social share for your blog content? It used to work, help. In 2025, is it risky? Could it contribute to your site's spam score?
Yeah, so it could, I would put that in the list of a shortcut. It's not overwhelmingly it's not overwhelmingly like human focused, etc. So instead, if I created a blog post, I would rather put some money into my paid social to promote that blog post and get it out in front of the right audience. And so I might use paid social to help get the word out. The paid social alone isn't really going to help with the SEO rankings, but what it does is it gets it in front of other people, and then they're more likely to link back to it. And so, a lot of times I remember like I used to be more engaged on Twitter, but a lot of times I saw people's content on Twitter, and then that's how I was reminded like, oh, GreenGeeks has this great blog post on this topic. Like I'm talking around the topic, I need to link to them. So just being out there with your content with some paid social is helpful.
Yeah, great. Lee, is B2B SEO different than B2C SEO? I find it tricky to connect with decision makers, especially if we offer for different industries and offer different solutions.
I agree. I think it is a little bit harder. It's definitely just not as easy as I'm looking for a sushi restaurant near me. You really have to put yourself into the shoes. How am I going to get in front of the right audience? And it's more audience oriented than anything, and a little less transactional in the keyword space. So I find when I work with B2B clients, I just have to spend more time in the beginning, getting to know the business, really getting to know the audience, and getting myself into their shoes to figure out how do we connect with them on Google. What are they searching for? Google Ads can be great there, by the way. So sometimes on B2B, we start with Google Ads because we can experiment more and figure out what's working. But then we find those B2B keywords sometimes to be really expensive. So then we're like, okay, now we know this is our niche. Let's go invest in SEO with it.
Thank you. Dane is asking, is there a way to tag images so AI engines aren't learning from them, but they show up on non-AI search results? As an artist, I am against generative engines training on my images. I don't get paid for that. Yeah.
I like your question and I don't know the answer to it. But I like where you're going with it, and I think it's worth figuring that out because yeah, it's like you want your content indexed, your written word, but you don't want the images. I will research it. That's really a good one.
Yeah. Virginia is asking, how do we grow reviews?
It's a little different for every, different business, but what you want to think about is when is the best time to ask your customer for a review and what is the best way to do it. So if you're a web designer, one of the best times to get a review would be build a new website, send like a post-project feedback survey, get some feedback, and then go back and say, thank you so much for your kind feedback. I really appreciate this. Would you mind echoing this sentiment on Google? Give them their words back and give them the link to your Google Maps review and ask them to post it there. Why do I like that approach? You hit them at the right time. You sort of curated the review. If you got some kind of negative feedback, you don't have to, go back to them with the review. And you took away the pressure on the individual who was like, ooh, I don't know what to say in a review, because you just asked them to fill out like a feedback survey. And then you made it really easy for them when they were ready. So that works for that business, but that doesn't work for a restaurant, right? For a restaurant, maybe the waiter drops their card at the end of the night and there's a little QR code on the back and it asks for a review. So you really have to get in the shoes of when do I ask and how do I ask? But we know that it works best when it's part of your process. It's standard. It works the least when it's feast and famine, which honestly is what we do at our agency. and at Pathfinder, which is like, one day I'm like, I need more reviews. I email a few people, we get a couple new reviews, and then I forget about it for like 6 months. That's something, but when it's in your process, it's much better.
Yeah, great, thank you. Virginia is asking, what does the acronym EAT, which you mentioned at the beginning, what does?
That's a great question. So it means experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And that's kind of this like when you're in the middle of all of that, those are the websites that get the most traction on Google. The websites that are backed by genuine experience, share their expertise, then they have strong authority and strong trust. And all of these things like creating content, having good user experience, being really, reasonably fast, having Google Maps reviews, that's like what helps you get into the middle of the EEAT world.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Also, Virginia is asking, earlier you mentioned something in regard to measure and communicate. It began with LL, and she's asking what that was.
I'm going to think about that while I answer other questions, and I'll let you know if I
Okay.
figure out what it was. But when it comes to measuring and communicating, the biggest tool you have is to showcase, what's happening and to look at visuals and then to see how the data behind the scenes, like relates to the visuals. Here's what I'm seeing on Google or seeing in ChatGPT, and this is echoed in Google Analytics or Google Search Console, in that data.
Yeah. Virginia is also asking, is the length of alt text important? Can it be quite long?
It can't be terribly long because the primary purpose is accessibility, and the screen readers will sort of stop reading it at a certain point. I can't remember offhand what the length is. I usually kind of go with something in like the 4 to 8 word length, and you don't need to include things like image of. That's assumed.
Oh, okay. Virginia is also, okay, Mary, in 30 seconds, we don't have a lot of time. How are brands featured in AI overviews?
Oh, good question. The best way to look at that is going to really be specific to your brand. So if you do a search for your brand, does it trigger an AI overview? Oftentimes the AI overviews aren't actually, if you search for the name of the brand, like LL Bean, it's not triggering an AI overview. Where it comes in is if I start saying and having a chat, I'm looking for outdoor gear, what brand should I consider? Then it's going to feature, you should consider, these 5 brands. How you get in there is going to be all of the stuff we've talked about.
Yeah. Let's see, Virginia, when we don't have a blog in our site, how do we grow reviews?
You shouldn't really need a blog necessarily to grow reviews on a channel like Google Maps. In fact, you don't even need a website to have a Google Maps listing. So Google Maps really is about your business name, address, phone number, and location and things like that. And so you can get started with Google Maps reviews without even having more than with no website or just a splash page. And that's actually a good place to start because it's where you start building some of that external power.
Okay. We have one more question here, Ayelette. What about online businesses regarding Google Business / Maps?
Good question. You can create, some of them will be like manufacturers or something like that, depending on what you do. We have a Google Maps listing for Pathfinder because we do have like a headquarters, even though we're online. So you just have to be pretty honest when you're filling things in with the categorization, because otherwise you'll probably get flagged in your Google Maps listing. So a lot of times I'll say just like put in your address, your physical address, even if you're online. Don't try doing a service area of a whole country right out of the gate. If you put a physical address in that you're willing to make public, you'll probably get your online business included. And a lot of businesses have headquarters and still have physical places of business.
Okay. And then I see one last thing, and then we have to wrap it up. Percentage-wise, where would you put more energy, video content or blog content?
Ooh, that's a hard one to answer.
That's
So I personally like to take one topic and hit it from all angles. So I create a blog post, written content, which is also video with a video embed in it. And that's the beginning. Then I publish it on social. Then I send it to my email list. And then I get out there and try to get out and talk about it on webinars and podcast guests, etc. So I try to just like saturate in to really get that topical depth. And in that case, whether I create the video or the blog content first, I struggle with video, so I create the video content first because otherwise I'll like never get to it. So I do the hardest thing first. But that doesn't mean it has the most value. It's more personal choice.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. I think actually we were able to go through all the questions.
Oh, good.
So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for being here and asking great questions. And thank you, Anna and Erica, for including me in today's conversation.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And keep looking for our webinars at greengeeks.com/webinars. And thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Erica. And we will see you soon.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Lindsay. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.